I was maimed in the great blinding just like everybody else. One day the world was a colorful pastel full of life and movement, and the next day we were blind. Not just some of us. Everybody was blind. Color became something that was instead of something that is. I could pick up an apple and not know if it was red or green or yellow, or maybe it was just something made to feel like an apple. For a time I would talk about the delicate red feathers of a cardinal I could hear chirping outside my bedroom window. Soon, it was just a cardinal. And finally, it was just a bird. We lost color, and with the color left a little part of us. I felt the life trickle out of me the longer I was enveloped in darkness. Walks at the park were monotonous now, meaningless as the darkness there was, as dark as the darkness anywhere else. I could feel the leaves, the little veins that coursed up from the stem and the ridges and edges of the bark of a tree. I could hear the splash of water when I tossed a rock into the pond, but I could no longer see the ripples of the water or the ducks scurrying away. I knew there should be a meaning to all this, some entity encouraging me to utilize my other senses or appreciate the sounds of the world, but all I could think of was how beautiful it all used to be. It has been 2 years since the blinding. 2 years of darkness, 2 years of indoctrination, verbal illumination as they called it. We were told what we would see if we could see. We were told how it should look and what it should mean and why things were never quite the way we thought they were. It has been 2 years since the blinding, and it has been 2 hours since I opened my eyes and things were different again. My world was no longer black when I awoke, suddenly a long, unfamiliar contrast between my eyes being open and my eyes being closed. It was off-putting but relieving, terrifying but intriguing. There was color again, not the beautiful oranges and reds and greens of autumn leaves, but at least there was more than just darkness. The walls were gray and the world was foggy. Shapes turned to letters as I read the words scrawled on my bedroom walls. "Don't tell them you can see," I deciphered, barely construing the different shades of gray that outlined the words. So I didn't. The paranoia overtook me as I hid my vision from whatever power had rendered me blind. I did my best to play it off, to not look at the little gray bird perched on my windowsill, and to hide my excitement from my colleagues. I went about my day as I would a blind man, using my hands like feelers as I groped and grasped my way about. I tapped away at the keyboard on my desk, the lifeless machine reciting back to me my keystrokes and any information it considered relevant to my role. The firm had adopted seamlessly to the blinding, installing backup measures as if they had been preparing them for years. I peeked. It was the same monotony it had always been. In the bathroom I saw the words again, etched into the mirror they hadn't bothered to remove. Why would they, after all? We were all blind and mired in the misery of endless introspection. Mirror or no mirror, it made no difference. Everything was gray, the colors no more diverse than light gray and dark gray. But there were those words again. Don't tell them you can see. I just stood there looking at myself. My clothes were gray and my face was gray, and my eyes that had once been the faintest shade of blue were gray and lifeless, as the darkness we were supposed to be in. I shook my head. I fought back the sadness. I had assumed until now that color still was. If the darkness ever ended, the birds I heard would still be yellow and blue and red, and the plants would still have green leaves and purple flowers. Instead, they were all gray. I told myself that it was my vision, not that somebody had removed the colors themselves from our beautiful world. I found comfort in convincing myself that my vision was still impaired. The alternative was far worse. Outside the office, the street was gray, and the sky was gray, and the buildings that stretched towards that gray sky blended into the clouds just a slightly different shade of gray. But as I looked out, a flash of color caught my eye. A man stood in the shadows of a building, looking out at me from an alleyway as gray as everything else. His shirt was red and his pants were blue, and even from this distance I could see the pink of his skin. It dawned on me that if he had color, then the birds really were gray, and my curiosity struggled to overcome the overwhelming sadness I felt. He stared, and when I finally met his eyes, he waved me towards him and vanished into the alley.